In my house, normal is a drier setting, not something people are. I was reading by the time I was 2, and later I taught myself to write backwards and read upside down, being under the impression that those skills would help me get a job at the newspaper my dad worked for. It didn't. In times of stress, some kids fantasize about running away to the circus. In my case, that was a clear non-starter. You see, this is my mother, the one with the blue hair. My parents helped run the Salvation Army Sunday School in Kingston, and in the 70s and 80s, churches were trying a lot of things to get people's attention. These are some of the puppets that we used. They're pretty much constructed the same as the Muppets on Sesame Street, except these are all homemade. My mom tried magic then, but she just didn't really have a knack. She would get flustered anytime things didn't go the way they should. My dad, however, was a natural. He was smooth, with a glint in his eye and a mischievous grin. Even when a trick failed, he would swear that was the way it was supposed to work. By the time I was a teen, most of our family holidays involved Christian magician conferences all over Canada and the US. And yes, I said Christian magicians. It's a thing. The funny thing about growing up like this, when you have a birthday where other kids would be really impressed to have a magic show, we would beg our parents not to do a magic show and not to dress like a clown. For my part, God and my music were everything. My sisters and I all took piano lessons. I also took voice lessons. I was part of a semi-professional gospel trio, but the group dissolved when I went to Chile for 13 months to help run an orphanage. I thought that was going to be it. I might come back to Canada to visit my family, but I expected to stay in the ministry for the rest of my life. That was when my life fell apart. I had a nervous breakdown, and after trying to cope for a while, I was sent home. I never told anyone, but this was when I had my first schizophrenic episodes. I didn't have a full-on psychotic break, but I started hearing voices, and I became convinced that all the girls in the orphanage were trying to kill me and just needed the opportunity to push me down the stairs. Do you remember what Hermione told Harry Potter in the Chamber of Secrets about hearing voices? That he shouldn't tell anyone or they'd think he was crazy? I wouldn't get the schizoaffective diagnosis until I was in my 40s. It was a long time before I could forgive myself for what I saw as failing God. But I slowly picked up the pieces and moved on with life. Once I was home, I made new friends and started new hobbies. I didn't have an autism diagnosis until I was 50, but my family will tell you I was always kind of weird. Well, maybe not just kind of. I swear I could have lived on a diet of gospel music and Star Trek. My reading and TV viewing have a lot more than just Star Trek, but like any other reasonable autistic, Star Trek is my monotropic focus. To understand just how seriously I take my trek, for the 30th anniversary of the show, I was interviewed on CBC Radio. For those who don't know, the start of this week was the 59th anniversary, and when we first had our son, we joked about teaching him Klingon as his first language. I've been involved in Star Trek and general science fiction conventions for a really long time. Science fiction conventions are where I have, in the end, found my tribe. I sometimes help organize them, sometimes I take a step back and just attend, but the most common for me is to be a guest panelist on one or several topics. Most frequently I help answer questions and run workshops showing teachers how to use science fiction and fantasy short stories and novels to combine STEM subjects with literature, improving reading comprehension, and encouraging participation. Reader's Digest version: I became a computer programmer, got married, had a son, along with a rather eclectic mix of hobbies: medieval reenactment, spinning, weaving, embroidery, lace making, sewing. I learned to cook, not just for my family. I've cooked a formal, researched 14th century feast for 200 people 3 different times now. I homeschooled my son until grade 8, and the man he has become is my proudest accomplishment. When my son was 3, my health took a downturn again, and I had to stop working. To make a very long, boring story slightly shorter, my migraines went from occasional to everyday, and then gradually started to acquire additional health issues. We moved here to Toronto in hopes there might be doctors who could help me here, but for several years, my health just slid downhill. So if life is so sucky, what am I even doing here? My doctors didn't give up on at least giving me a better quality of life. About a year and a half ago, 3 things happened. I got access to new migraine medication, which dramatically improved my daily functioning. I found a new church where I'm happy and can contribute, and I got a catastrophic medical diagnosis. I had been close to getting an MS diagnosis, which would suck, but it's treatable, and these days people with MS live long, productive lives. Well, it's not MS. Great, right? No, I have something called cerebral small vessel disease. It's gradually damaging my brain, which is why I have a tendency to fall, and I can forget words mid-sentence. They think I've had 2 small strokes so far, and I'm 5 times more likely than average to have a stroke. I've had memory testing recently because dementia is the next part of the progression. As someone who's trilingual, the idea of losing language terrifies me. So yeah, when I got the diagnosis, I had a bit of a pity party. But then I got mad and decided I was going to hang on for as long as I could. So I started school anyways. And you know what? While life has had some physical deterioration, cognitively, I'm holding my own. And my doctors credit me going back to school and going to deaf camp and going back to my music for how well I'm doing. I'm not willing to give up if I can make a positive contribution out there somehow. So we're all here trying to make something of ourselves. As for what brings me joy, that's music. My voice isn't as strong as it was in my 20s, but this is me in church, and tomorrow I have an audition for professional choir. So if you can still dream, you can still go for it.